I have started delivering some lectures in module 6 of this course, which is about extraction of metals from sulphide ores. And we have already discussed copper extraction. Let me go back to the beginning once again and make some general comments. The reason I am going back is because sometimes you understand some general statements better if you know the specifics, and sometimes it is the other way around. For example, you understand the specific steps better if you know the principles, and once you know the principles, you know the specific steps better. So, actually in learning we have to keep on doing this, go back to principles and some general observations and go back to some specifics. Let me give you an illustration of that. What you must have noticed when we are discussing extraction of copper is that not only our aim was to get copper out of copper ores, but many other elements as such. Now, remember what I mentioned in the beginning, that sulphides are very good solvents not only for each other, but also they dissolve other things like precious metals. Now, we have talked about processing of chalcopyrite. Which is sometimes written as Cu2s Fe2S3, or you can also write it as Cu Fe S2. We write either way. When we come to the extraction of zinc, which I will take little later, this is the ore of copper. For zinc, we have sphalerite, that is the main mineral, and lead mineral, main mineral is called galena. Now, it so happens that many deposits has more than two of these. You can have a sulphide deposit with bit of this and this, or all three of this. There are some which you call mixed sulphides, where all three are very much there together along with many other things. But generally we find that zinc sulphide and copper sulphide, sorry, this is PBS, zinc sulphide and lead sulphide often go together. Now, you know the sulphide deposits are found in Rajasthan, that is why we have the zinc plant in Udaipur. Now, it so happens that in the deposits where we have both ZNS and PBS, we can have concentrate rich in ZNS separated out by differential flotation. This can be separated out also by differential flotation, means a zinc sulphide concentrate and a lead sulphide concentrate. This goes to a zinc plant in Udaipur. It goes through and hydrometallurgical route. Zinc sulphide is first roasted, made into zinc oxide, then it is dissolved in acid, sulphuric acid, and from that acid solution, after proper purification, we electrolyze the solution to get zinc. This cannot be done for lead sulphide. What is done is now, this lead sulphide comes all the way to Bihar, to a place called Tundu. This lead sulphide will be roasted to PBO, and this will be reduced by coke in a blast furnace to produce lead. So, see the interesting thing, we have zinc sulphide, lead sulphide together in Rajasthan, zinc sulphide will go for treatment nearby, whereas lead sulphide has come all the way to Bihar because we need coke. So, the question is either you take coke to that place or you bring this to this place. Lead is also produced in Vizag. Again the concentrate comes from that place to Vizag unless it is imported. Copper pyrites, which also is kind of mixture of iron sulphide and copper sulphide, can be found as a rich concentrate in eastern India. That is why we have a copper smelting plant in Ghatshila. But there are many deposits in India where all three are together. I will come to that towards the end, and till today we do not have a very successful commercial process for exploitation of these for various reasons, maybe their location, maybe the extent to which they are there, or the complications that one has to go through to handle three elements from them. But this is very successful. When you have zinc sulphide and lead sulphide together, they can be separated out by flotation. One goes in one way, the other goes another way. Now, there is also a very important process called imperial smelting process, which I will discuss, where in Rajasthan itself there is now blast furnaces which are called imperial smelting process, where a concentrate which has both of these can be treated. Lead will come out by carbothermic reduction. During that reduction, zinc will come out as a vapor from the top, and there is a way of recovering zinc from that vapor. We will discuss that. That is a very modern process for production of zinc and lead from the same unit. In theory, if there is any copper in that concentrate, that can also be recovered as a separate phase in imperial smelting process, but normally it is not a very desirable thing. What I am trying to say is that these sulphides are often mixed together, and by differential flotation we can have concentrates that are rich in 1 or 2. Generally, we will like to have a concentrate which is only rich in one metal, main metal, so that there is a well defined process. But imperial smelting process can handle a concentrate containing both zinc sulphide and lead sulphide. Now, you will appreciate now what is happening in sulphide metallurgy. In sulphide metallurgy, the main elements involved are copper, lead and zinc, and we recover all 20 elements during their processing. Copper, lead, zinc of course, depending on the main element, then sulphur, silver, gold, platinum, palladium, arsenic, antimony, bismuth, selenium, tellurium, nickel, cobalt, indium, tin, rhenium, mercury, all these are recoverable and they are recovered. You recall the flow sheets I have shown for copper refining, many of these are coming out of that. Now, the elements, they are also there, but they will be discarded because they would not have commercial value even if discarded are these. So, we say in addition to these 20 recoverable elements, there are at least 9 other elements which must be separated, usually in the form of a discard slag or gas at one stage or other of the processing step. And very interestingly, the elements that we are utilizing mainly in the processing of copper, lead and zinc are carbon, oxygen and hydrogen in the form of water. Now, we will go back to copper again and see the relevance of the statement we have made. Now, we have seen that so far as copper metallurgy is concerned, we start with an ore which is only about 1 to 2% copper. On float, it has to be first ground to fine size, then flotation upgrades it to 15 to 35% copper. Then the conventional route has 3 main steps. One is roasting, then reverberatory smelting and converting to finally get an intermediate product called blister copper, which on refining will produce cathode copper, very pure, and whole lot of byproducts in the slime recovered. Now, there is another minor step sometimes called calcination, which is not a very important step, and we can ignore that for now. The first step of roasting, which can be in a hearth roaster or in a fluid based roaster, you should understand by now. There the main point is to heat the concentrates without fusion in the solid state. The main idea is to oxidize the concentrate, so that most of the iron sulphide is taken to the FeO stage, preferably not beyond, because if it goes beyond FeO, then subsequently we will find it difficult to remove them through slagging. So, to ensure that it does not get over oxidized, we have to leave a lot of iron sulphide unoxidized. It is okay. Now, this is a oxidizing step. You need oxygen to oxidize the concentrate. Next main phase is reverberatory or electric furnace smelting, where a liquid phases are formed. We add fluxes so that we have a slag. In that slag, we will take the FeO that was created here, and some more of the iron sulphide that was left behind would also be oxidized, taken to a FeO step, and we will try to remove as much of iron as possible in the slag here. Essentially, we will be left with a matte, which is a mixture of copper sulphides and iron sulphides, with very little of oxygen left, very little of FeO left. Now, during the converting, whatever that FeO iron sulphide is remaining in the matte will be oxidized, taken into a slag phase. The slag phase will go back here, because there could be some copper coming out. So, we have to recover that. So, finally, a stage comes where all iron sulphide has been oxidized, and that process of oxidation provides heat during converting, which becomes its autogeneous process. We are left with what is called white metal, that is all Cu2s. Now, this Cu2s starts getting oxidized, starts forming Cu2O, and when we have twice as much Cu2O as Cu2s, they react mutually, starts forming copper. Copper will settle to the bottom. Because it is settling to the bottom, we cannot have bottom blown converter. So, the converter is side blown. And finally, we have to find a time when all that copper sulphide has been converted to copper, and mind you, there is no reducing agent involved. You are simply oxidizing copper sulphide to form Cu2O, then Cu2O and Cu2s is reacting to give copper, it will form blister copper. Now, obviously, we have an oxidizing atmosphere here. In the reverberatory furnace, we do not need such a strong oxidizing atmosphere, because mainly we are removing the FeO in the slag stage, but we want a stronger oxidizing atmosphere during converting. So, there are 3 stages with different PO2 requirements. Now, the advancements in copper metallurgy aim at combining these steps. Why do we want to combine? To understand that, look at this slide. So, this is a conventional route. We have the concentrate goes to roasters. Now, after you have roasted the material, has to be taken out, transported to a reverberatory furnace, where you are making a mat. After you have made the mat has to be transported through ladles into a converter to form blister copper. So, there are transportation operations involved between roasting to reverberatory furnace to ladle. So, you have 3 steps, and during these intermediate gaps you lose a lot of heat. You just take out hot material from here, you charge here, you are losing heat there, you take out hot material from here in ladles. Not only you are adding operational steps, you are also incurring lot of heat losses. So, the attempts have been made to combine these steps. The first step in that direction was the flash smelting, that the after we have got the concentrate, they are dried, and then there is no separate roasting and smelting. It is all done together in a flash smelter, where in suspension all the reactions take place. In one stage you produce matte, and that goes for converting. So, you are producing in one step matte. Now, the third generation wanted even to combine these two into one. So, that we start from concentrate and in one reactor go straight to blister copper. This is called the continuous smelting route, and many developments have taken place in that direction. The idea will be to take the concentrate, and in one reactor it will be continuously smelted, means it will undergo roasting, smelting, converting, and straight away it will produce blister copper. Now, there is we cannot think of a process which will combine refining also in all this and produce refined copper. That is not possible, because these are pyrometallurgical processes, whereas refining combines pyrometallurgy and finally electrometallurgy. But 1, 2, 3 steps can be made into 2 steps in flash smelters, and all 3 can be combined into one reactor in continuous smelting operations. What will be the advantage? That you will get rid of the going from one stage to the other, transporting material from one to the other, having heat losses. And once you have one reactor where everything takes place, things can be faster, speedier, heat losses would be low, but things will be more difficult. Why they will be more difficult? Because here is a reactor where the condition can be uniform, same POT will prevail in the roaster, is roasting. One PO2 will prevail in the reverberatory furnace, and during converting you are injecting oxygen, there is certain oxidizing environment in the converter. If you want to convert these 3 into a single reactor, then a reactor must be so designed that its partial pressure of oxygen varies from one region to another. So, it is not a reactor where the gaseous atmosphere is uniform. It is not possible to then go from concentrate to matte to blister copper. So, the reactors have to be designed with notionally separate regions. They are connected all right, but they are separate regions where roasting, smelting, sometimes roasting, smelting can be combined as in the flash smelting, but definitely smelting and converting are two different operations altogether. Now, a simple way of doing this was done by the Japanese. The Japanese proposed a smelting process called Mitsubishi continuous smelting process, which actually was a continuous process, but not necessarily one reactor. No, they had 3 reactors, but the interesting concept was that there is a smelting furnace where flux, air, oxygen, as you say, injected, combine roasting and smelting in one step. That can be combined, roasting and smelting in one step. Then the slag and matte, they flow out, because the next reactor is put at a lower level. So, these automatically flow out, and this intermediate chamber is called an electric slag cleaning furnace. Means you have got the slag and the matte, but the slag can be treated to get the right temperature under right PO2 to recover all the, if there is any CO losses. And there is a baffle here, you see, which dips into the liquid, which means only the matte can go from the bottom to the other end, but the slag gets stuck here. Slag floats on top, the slag cannot go that way. There is a porthole through which slag would come out and for dumping. So, this intermediate step is to ensure that copper losses in the slag are minimized, and the slag is not allowed to flow to the next chamber because of a baffle, is taken out. Only the matte can go under the baffle and flow into the next reactor, which is again at a lower level. So, these 3 go from one level to a lower level to the lowest level. So, the matte will flow from here into this slag. If there are any copper, that copper will be recovered, that matte will go here, and then this is a converter where air, oxygen, calcium carbonate is are there, and you get blister copper, and the converter slag will be granulated and it will go back here, just in case there are some copper losses. Now, this is a kind of continuous process in the sense that continuously concentrate is being fed, continuously blister copper is coming out, but the whole thing is not a single reactor. But this is easier to operate, because you can maintain a very high oxygen partial pressure here, the oxygen partial pressure here required is low, and here it is a conditioning compartment where you have the PO2 as you need in order to recover copper. So, this is the Japanese process, but this is not the ideal solution. One of the first answer to this question of combining all the steps was provided by a man called Werner, and the process is named after him. It is called Werkra process. This is derived by combining the first 3 alphabets of the inventor's name Werner with CRA, which is Conzino Rio Tinto of Australia Limited. It is an Australian company where Werner was working. So, he conceived the idea. There are many others who were conceiving the idea, but he finally developed a process which was workable. The process seeks to maximize the conservation of energy obtained from smelting and converting by integrating to a high degree a continuous operations. Now, I have mentioned earlier that all the reactions that are happening during sulphide processing are oxidizing. Whenever sulphides get oxidized, they produce heat. But if you have different stages, then much of the heat generated in one step will not go into the next step, because in between you lose that heat. especially when you are transporting material, or if you have too many units from the surfaces of which heat gets lost. If you put them all in one reactor, then heat losses will be minimized and you will make better use of the heat being generated in the smelting and converting operations. Now, this is the scheme. This is a Werner Warcraft furnace, where PO2 will not be uniform all through. We will tell you how. And schematically, it has to have air injection. Whatever heat will come out will go through heat exchangers for recovery of heat. The gases, that is SO2, that will come out will go to an acid plant to make sulfuric acid. This is flux SiO2 concentrates, these are going into here. Oil or coal, this is for supplying heat. Now, one of the very interesting concepts to be used in a continuous furnace is that the partial pressure of oxygen cannot be uniform all through. There is another interesting concept which needs some engineering, that is that matte and slag phase must flow in opposite directions. You cannot have matte and slag flowing together and coming out at the same end. In all these reactors, you will find matte is coming out on one side, slag is flowing out from the other side. Why this is so?